My girlfriend Katie and I decided to do something fun for Halloween this year. We've been stuck inside for most of the year because of the pandemic, and a haunted hayride seemed like the perfect way to get into the spirit while staying socially distanced. The local farm about 30 minutes out of town was running one, so we booked 2 tickets. The night was crisp and cool, the perfect October evening. As we pulled into the parking lot, we saw a decent crowd, though the organizers had done a good job spacing things out. We had to wear masks this whole time, and there was a sign at the entrance saying there wouldn't be any actors jumping out or anything like that due to the COVID-19 restrictions. It was supposed to be a quiet, creepy ride through the cornfields. Just you, the dark, and your imagination. We grabbed a couple of hot chocolates from the stand and made our way to the tractor that was pulling the hay wagon. The driver was a middle-aged guy, pretty friendly, and he made some small talk before we hopped onto the hay bales. There were about 8 other people on the ride, mostly couples, all keeping a respectful distance from each other. The tractor started moving slowly down the dirt path, and it was nice at first. You could hear the crunch of the tires over the gravel, and the air was filled with the earthy smell of dried corn husks. The wagon swayed a little as it crept through the field, and Katie leaned against me, sipping her hot chocolate. The whole ride was pretty peaceful at first, and just the sound of the tractor and the wind rustling through the corn stalks. Then, about 15 minutes in, I saw someone, standing just off the edge of the path, barely visible through the tall corn. I nudged Katie and pointed. "Do you see that?" She squinted in the direction I was looking. There was a figure standing maybe 20 or 30 feet into the cornfield. He was wearing a wide-brimmed cowboy hat and tattered overalls. The guy was just standing there, motionless, watching the tractor pass by. Katie frowned. "Weird. I thought they said there wouldn't be any actors this year." "Maybe they changed their mind," I said, but deep down I wasn't convinced. Something about the guy seemed off. The ride wasn't supposed to have any jump scares or actors, just a spooky atmosphere. And besides, this person wasn't even near the path. He was deep in the cornfield. It did not make any sense for him to be there. A few minutes later, I saw him again, further down the trail. Same cowboy hat, same ragged overalls, standing in the same rigid, unnatural way. It was like he'd somehow moved through the corn faster than the tractor. There was no way he could have gotten ahead of us without making some kind of noise, but I didn't hear a thing. This time, the couple sitting across from us saw him too. The woman leaned over and whispered to her boyfriend, and I could tell by her face that she was creeped out. The third time we saw him, he was closer, just a few feet from the edge of the path. His face was hidden in the shadow under the hat, and he still hadn't moved an inch. I tried to brush it off as part of the ride, but the knot in my stomach kept tightening. The rest of the ride was uneventful. We did not see the cowboy again, and after another 10 minutes or so, the tractor looped back to the parking lot. As we climbed out of the wagon, I mentioned the guy in the corn to the driver. "Are there actors out there?" I asked. "We saw someone a few times during the ride." The driver gave me a confused look. "Nope, no actors this year. Like I said, it's just the wagon and the corn. You sure you weren't imagining this?" I shook my head and said no. There was definitely someone out there. The driver shrugged. "Maybe someone's messing around out there. Kids or something." We walked back to our car, both of us feeling a little unsettled. As we approached the car, though, I froze. Sitting on the hood was a cowboy hat. the same wide-brimmed, dirt-stained hat we'd seen in the corn. Katie gasped and stepped back. What the hell? I walked up to the car slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. As I got closer, I saw dark red stains on the brim of the hat. It did not take much imagination to know what it was. We did not say a word. I grabbed the hat and tossed it onto the ground, and we got into the car as fast as we could. As I started the engine, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there watching us. We drove home in silence, neither of us wanting to acknowledge what had just happened. I haven't been back to that farm since, and I never planned to. Something out there wasn't right, and I'm not going to stick around to find out what. I still think about that night, and the cowboy hat. I don't have any logical explanation for it, but one thing's for sure. It wasn't part of the ride. Every October, my family and I had a tradition. We'd bundle up in our warmest clothes, grab hot cider from the local stand, and climb onto the hayride that wound its way through the pumpkin fields and cornfields behind the farm. And it was something I looked forward to all year. Just me, my mom, and my dad, huddled together under the stars, the chilly autumn wind brushing our faces as the tractor pulled us slowly through the darkness. This particular October night felt like any other. The stars were barely visible, hidden behind a blanket of clouds, and the air had that distinct October bite to it. We waited in line for our turn, surrounded by other families and groups of teenagers laughing loudly, trying to outscare each other. Eventually, we boarded the wagon, taking our usual spots near the back, where we could see the fields stretch out in all directions. The ride started as usual, the creaky wooden wagon jolting forward as the tractor engine roared to life. The sounds of the wheels crunching over gravel quickly faded into the softer thud of dirt as we entered the cornfields. I was nestled between my mom and dad, feeling the familiar sense of comfort that always came with our yearly ritual. And it was peaceful, just the sounds of the night, the hum of the tractor, and the occasional murmur of other passengers. About halfway through the ride, we hit a bump, a big one. The wagon jerked to the side, and I grabbed the wooden slab beneath me to keep from sliding off. I felt my heart race for a second, but then everything steadied again. The tractor did not stop, and everyone on the wagon just exchanged confused glances. We all kind of chuckled nervously. Hayrides weren't supposed to be smooth after all. Probably just a rock, my dad said, trying to lighten the mood. I nodded, but something about it felt off. It did not feel like we hit a rock. It was too soft, too strange. But when I looked over the edge of the wagon, the ground was too dark to see anything. Just the dim outlines of the path stretching behind us. We continued the ride, moving through the fields and into a small patch of forest. The trees loomed above us, casting long shadows on the ground. I tried to shake the weird feeling from earlier, telling myself it was nothing. By the time the tractor emerged from the woods and the lights from the farm came into view, I had almost forgotten about the bump. But when we rolled to a stop, things were different. There were police cars parked near the entrance, their blue and red lights flashing in the dark. An ambulance was with them too, the back doors open, and paramedics standing nearby, talking quietly to one of the farm's employees. The cheerful mood from earlier had shifted, replaced by a tense, uneasy energy. As we climbed off the wagon, my dad exchanged a look with my mom. He walked over to one of the employees he knew, a guy who worked on the farm every year. They talked in hushed voices while my mom and I stood near the exit, my fingers still clutching the edge of her coat. I watched as my dad's face went from confusion to shock, his eyes widening slightly before he muttered something to the employee and walked back to us. He had this look, one I had never seen before, like he did not quite know what to say or how to say it. "We're leaving," he said quietly, his voice strained. My mom did not ask any questions, just nodded, and we made our way towards the car. The whole time I could feel this heavy sense of something hanging in the air, something wrong. Once we were in the car and driving away from the farm, my dad finally spoke. "There was a guy," he said, glancing at my mom, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. "A homeless man. They think he passed out in the middle of the hayride path. He was on drugs." I stared out the window, my mind trying to process what he was saying. "They didn't see him," my dad continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "The tractor ran over him, crushed him." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I felt sick. The bump, the one we all felt, wasn't a rock. It was a person. A man who had died beneath the wagon, his life snuffed out in an instant, right under our feet. I couldn't comprehend it. Not fully. I was young, too young to understand how something so horrific could happen during something as simple and innocent as a hayride. But I knew one thing. I'd never look at that ride the same way again. And to this day, I can't hear the sounds of wheels crunching over dirt without feeling a pit to my stomach, remembering the darkness of that night and the weight of what we unknowingly left behind. I'm not one for spooky stuff. That's more my girlfriend's thing. But when she mentioned a hayride was on her bucket list for the fall, I couldn't say no. It seemed harmless enough. Plus, it was October, and everyone's getting into that Halloween spirit. The only one near us was at this rundown farm a few towns over. The website did not have much information, but it ran every weekend, so we figured it'd be fine. When we got there, the place looked like it hadn't been touched up in years. The barn was barely holding together, and the tractor that we were using for the hayride looked older than dirt. There weren't many people there, just a few couples and families. Still, she was excited, and I was not about to rain on a parade. The ride started off like any other. The tractor was loud, and we sat on bales of hay in this big open trailer behind it. The air smelled like dry corn, and the night was cool enough that it felt like proper fall weather. We rumbled along, the tractor taking us down this narrow dirt path with cornfields on either side. It wasn't too bad, actually, kind of peaceful in a way. But then the tractor started to slow down. The conductor, this older guy who looked like he had been working that farm his whole life, stood up from his seat, looking annoyed. He turned back towards us and asked if anyone had jumped off the trailer. No one had. We all looked around, confused. He swore under his breath, saying he saw someone standing in the cornfield. His tone was off, not playful or part of the show, just irritated. And after a few seconds of looking at each other, he sat back down, grumbling about kids these days. The tractor started up again, but the ride wasn't smooth anymore. We were jolting and jerking, like something was wrong with the engine. And after a bit, it sputtered and slowed down again, finally coming to a stop. The conductor stood up again, this time clearly annoyed. He told us not to worry, that it was just a small fix. He grabbed some tools and got off the tractor, heading to the front to check the engine. We were left sitting there in the dark, surrounded by cornfields on both sides. And that's when I heard it. Whispers, low, faint, but unmistakable. They were coming from the cornfield to my right. And at first I thought maybe it was part of the attraction. You know, actors hidden in the corn to scare us. But we hadn't seen anyone like that the whole ride. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to nerves. But then I saw something. There, between the rows of corn, was a figure. It moved slowly, deliberately, like it didn't care if anyone saw it. The moonlight was weak, but it was enough to make out what it was. A clown, or at least something dressed like one. Its face was pale, with dark streaks running down from the eyes. It wore an oversized suit, but it was filthy, the kind of grime that looked like it had been there for years. I felt my stomach drop. It moved in and out of the stalks, never coming fully into view, but enough that I could see it was real. My heart was pounding, but I tried to stay calm. Maybe it was part of the ride, right? Even though it had not felt like that so far, maybe this was their way of scaring us. The conductor finally finished whatever he was doing and climbed back onto the tractor. The engine roared to life, and we started moving again. I was about to forget about the clown when I looked back. It was standing in the middle of the path, watching us drive away. It did not chase us or make any sudden movements. It just stood there. The last thing I saw before we turned a corner was that clown's face staring right at me, half hidden in shadow. The rest of the ride was quiet. No one else seemed to notice anything. I did not say a word about it to my girlfriend. I did not want to freak her out, and honestly, I wasn't even sure what I'd seen. When we got back to the farm, everyone got off the trailer, and the conductor gave a half-hearted wave goodbye. I waited until everyone else had left and walked up to him, trying to act casual. "Hey, was that clown supposed to be a part of the ride?" I asked. He looked at me like I was speaking a different language. "What clown?" "You know, the one in the cornfield, back when the tractor stopped." His face went blank for a second before he shook his head. "There's no actors on the ride, just me and the tractor. Ain't nobody else out there." I did not press him further. My girlfriend and I got into the car, and I did not mention it again. We never went back to that farm. But every October, when the air starts to cool, I think about that clown, about how it wasn't supposed to be there, and about how it just stood there watching, waiting for something. We never figured out what, and I don't plan on going back to find out. Hey, what's up guys? It's Spooky. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you survived. If you did not know, I have an Instagram. Follow me on there so we can connect. I also have a Patreon. On there you'll have direct access to me and can see the upcoming videos, polls, and soon-to-be exclusive stories only shared on there. If that's something that interests you, please consider joining. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Stay spooky, and I'll see you in the next video.